To whom much is given, much is required. Part of that requirement is sharing. Culture is the heartbeat within our lives, and it's at the core of so many things. While we live in a time when we are starving for wisdom, I welcome you to your wisdom retreat at Culture Raises Us.
D, I can't thank you enough for being here today, brother.
Happy to be here, Aster.
No, I love it. It was great bumping into you some weeks and months ago, and reconnecting. And not like we haven't connected, but I think that's one of the beauties and the curses of social media, is that you feel so connected with somebody, yet we hadn't been able to see each other and feel each other's energy in some time, and it was amazing. And as I was putting this whole thing together, I thought about you as one of the individuals, and I told you that night. I was like, dog, I was thinking about you because your POV in this space of culture is so outstanding. And so, you know, before we get into, you know, letting people know a little bit about who you are and all you're about, I always ask the question, when you hear culture, what does that mean to you? What comes to mind?
Oh, man. It's funny when I think about culture, I always think about Africa for some reason. Like this, I'm just going to take it over here. I always think about Africa, and I think about groups of people that kind of, you know, for lack of a better term, you know, march to the beat of their own drum. And they kind of insulate themselves and say, hey, this is ours. What we do here, if we're dancing, if we're cultivating this, if we braid our hair this way, if we put these marks on our face, if we wear these kind of clothes, if we live in this kind of environment, this is our culture. And these are the things that we do because this is us. And that's the first foundation of culture to me. And then when the word became kind of like popular within the hip hop scope, I used to always be like, why they say culture like that? Because for me, I thought of it as a lifestyle, and culture and lifestyle go hand in hand, but I always used to think of it as a lifestyle that was part of our overall Black experience. You know, like the hip hop world, or, you know, the streetwear world, that's part of everything else that we experience as Black people, which make up our culture. You know, because even if I go down south, there are aspects of my Black experience down south in South Carolina, where my family's from, that doesn't have anything to do with hip hop. That's not part of that culture. So sometimes when people say culture and they're talking about hip hop, I have to differentiate sometimes, because my mind will go to Africa, my mind will go to South Carolina. But when I know that they're talking about hip hop, and I've used the term a couple of times, I try not to use it as much, because I think some people lean on it as a crutch. You're doing it because you have an ulterior motive. I think sometimes culture is used as a scapegoat to get in and do certain things within hip hop that aren't necessarily for the best of it. That's why I look at culture a little bit different when it has to be said with an intent that means inclusiveness and expansion, rather than a monopolizing kind of feel to me.
That's right. An appropriation.
Yeah, man. It's like I have not a love-hate relationship with the word. I just understand that it means certain things coming from certain
people. It's real, because I could see where the foundational point of when you talk about Africa, the preservation of the beautiful things that are done within that culture, and then how you look at the correlation to that of what we talk about hip-hop culture. And the thing I would ask, and it's not a challenge, but say that, okay, as you talk about the Africa piece, I look at it very similar to that of hip-hop culture, except hip-hop culture just expanded out way beyond the walls of just, hip-hop culture, and became the culture, or however we want to frame this thing, to where it now feeds into every aspect of our life, every facet of our life. And so that's why you are so critical to have on. So I have the beauty of having known you for years. I'd love for you to share a little bit about who you are, your background, for all those who are listening and watching, so they get a sense of exactly who and what you're all about and why you're so critical to this convo.
Man, first and foremost, Aster, man, like, you know the immense amount of respect I have for you and everything you've done for not
Thank
only
you,
just
bro.
the culture, but for like so many different individuals. People don't even know how much you've helped so many people break into this game, how you're a mentor, and how you literally raising superstars. You know
Thank you.
what I'm saying? You know, and
I
you're married
appreciate
to
you.
one. And
I
you're married to
appreciate
one
I
at the same
appreciate you.
time.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I mean?
appreciate you.
So we got to get that. We got to get that on the board as well. You know, just to kind of like put my career in scope. And before, it used to be so tough for me to do that because I always felt like since I'm working, I'm always working, and I'm always like, oh man, I'm striving. But now that I'm hitting like the 27 or 28 year mark in this thing, I've been able to put my daughters to college from it, you know, get a home for my family through it,
Look at that.
help out my fam and stuff like that. I start to look at like all the different accomplishments in and outside, excuse me, of what I do. And I guess is what do I do? I remember someone asked me, what do you do? And I was like, I make dope shit.
That's literally.
And you know, I started my career at Vibe, and it's so funny now being the editor-in-chief and the VP over at PMC who owns it. This is my third go around at Vibe. I've started my whole career as an intern in '96. I stayed there for a year. I didn't get any college credit. I didn't get any check from them. But what I did get was a whole lot of like experience and education and networking skills and learning things and going to events and seeing how people edit late at night and how they write late at night. My experience as an intern was way different than all of the kids that were interns at that time. They had like a time stamp when they had to do it and be out. Since I didn't get mine from school, I got it on my own. I could stay there as long as I wanted. Nobody could really kick me out. So I was able, it was like, what do you want? Do you want the college credit, or do you want the experience and the know-how? And do you want the money, or do you want to be able to say you just worked that Vibe? So it was like a lot of different things that I was processing, but I knew for some reason, something in me was just saying like, this is the path. Because I got there in '96, but I was working at the New York Public Library from '94 to when I got the internship. And I was going to college at that time. I was at Baruch College, Manhattan, for business journalism. And I really wasn't liking it, not because the school was bad, but just because my heart wasn't in it like that. My heart was like, I want to work at Vibe of the Source. That was it. I just knew that my voice needed to be heard on some hip hop stuff, and that I can contribute to not just the culture, but to the conversations that we were having about this explosion that was happening in the mid '90s for hip hop. I just knew my voice needed to be heard. I was pretty popular in high school to be able to tell people like, this is what you listen to, listening to Bobito and everybody, and you know, my uncles were DJs. It all comes together, and it just kind of exploded, and I would just write. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, man, like this young kid off the block in Brooklyn just wanted his voice to be heard. And then next thing you know, I'm sitting with Quincy Jones, and I'm sitting with Puff, and I'm sitting with like all these different major individuals that not only shape or create, you know, kind of like the business that we're in, you know, and they're entrepreneurs at the same time, and they're moguls, and they're this and they're that. And I just had that same kind of drive, but my particular entry point was through writing and about hip hop. So leave Vibe, go to Double XL at the ground floor. I'm being, you know, homed by like Reginald Dennis, James Bernard, you know, Rob Marriott, Dennis Page, Don Morris, Minya O, aka Miss Info.
Minya, yes.
Those are the people who kind of molded me and shaped me and was like, yo, this is what you do. This is how we do this magazine thing. And this is like now 97. I get my first cover with Cannabis in 98. Beginning of 99, I'm like, I'm on a roll with like Jay-Z, DMX, and Ja Rule.
For the Hard Knock.
Yeah, Hard Knock. And I'm like, it's like, what the hell? Like my life just went from being on the block, wishing I was in Cali and telling my friends, we gonna go to Cali, watch, to actually having my friends in Cali with me. Like I told y'all, like, look, and I was just projecting. I just wanted to get off.
Manifestation, bro.
Manifestation.
Power of manifestation.
And it's so real. It is, I mean, more than anything, you could put the work in, you can have the talent, you really got to just speak it, though. It has to get in that win. It has to be it has to be in you to get out there so it can be. And thank you for saying that, because it was like all the work in the world, you know, I feel like that I've put in, you know, starting King and then becoming Double XL editor-in-chief, working with Russell Simmons, you know, helping build his digital, and then coming back to Vibe for like a 3-year stint, leaving, going into Silicon Valley, working with Ozzy Media, becoming editor-in-chief of Respect, and then coming back to Vibe in 2015. It's been like a whirlwind, man. I just, sometimes I just sit back and I'm like, wow, man, this is
God's plan is amazing, bro. God's plan is amazing.
It's to the point where it's like, the same way I manifested and started talking about wanting to be at a publication or whatever, I started to see like, oh, production is kind of the wave that I want to go into too, like TV and film production. And in 2018, when we were absorbed by a company called MRC, who owns like A24, who puts out Oscar-winning movies, and Fullwell 73, which is a production company that's owned by James Corden, so that's Carpool Karaoke and all that. MRC bought Vibe, Billboard, and THR. But they also own Dick Clark Productions. And Dick Clark owns like Golden Globes, Billboard Music Awards, Academy of Country Music, New Year's Rockin' Eve, American Music. Like, I just started making inroads over there, and next thing you know, I'm consulting producer on these shows. My IMDb page is starting to look kind of crazy, and I'm like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Manifested that as well. You know, I really wanted to get in that space, and here we are. You know, it's a beautiful time, man.
No, good for you, and I thank you for sharing that story and the humbleness in how you shared it, in terms of how some things, you kind of fell into, per se, right? But not fall into, is you put the manifestation out and you put the word out there, and God obviously takes care of the rest, right? And it's a plan that comes together that you look back and you're like, man, how did I do this? Well, you didn't, because we're not that smart or that good.
We're not.
But we're not. It's just,
and we're not that much in control, Aster. That's the other thing, like you said, like, we're not in control as much as we think we are, man. Because some of these things that would happen, I'll be like, I didn't even know that can happen. You know what I'm saying? That's why the control factor we don't have.
Yeah, and that's why it's good to share these type of stories and insight, so others can understand that and then tap into that. Over the years, was there ever a particular moment where you realized how big and instrumental, in particular music, hip-hop, fashion, because you're in the middle of all this, was to overall culture as we know it? Was there a moment when you realized, oh, wait a minute, oh, this is different, this is special? It's
wild when tag, man, there's probably so many, but the one that immediately comes to mind, and I know he's in some troubled times right now, but it was like the impact of Kanye, at least in the new age of what we're dealing with. He not only was like high end in music, he was high end in fashion. And then that went into not just like, oh, look at my clothes, like, look what I can produce as a music entity. Go to Nike and not be an athlete and have one of the highest selling shoes there. And then to turn around and say, hey, y'all not treating me right. I'm bouncing. And everybody's like, you're crazy. And then go to Adidas and blow. I mean, if we just look at that, we get to see, it's not just Kanye, it's the power of hip hop. It's the power that was the foundation of how he got in. He wouldn't have been able to do it the other way around. He wouldn't be able to come in through fashion and sneakers and become the
And
biggest.
music.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Russell Simmons and Run DMC were able to influence Adidas and all of them with the shell toe because that was like a street style thing. Like I think if I really think about it, that was the turning point. That was the turning point where a bankable music artist in hip hop could influence the masses to say, hey, wear this, and then influence a Fortune 500 company.
To support it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's where everything kind of comes together. So I would say back in the day, it was the Run DMC Russell deal with Adidas. And then I would say in modern day, it was kind of like what Kanye was able to do when he finally broke the mold from, you know, lifting Nike to going to Adidas and making a true brand outside of what he does
Right.
or what he came into the game in.
Right. So those are two bookends, right? So there's obviously a pretty big space in between that, right? So talk about this evolution then of hip hop and Black culture and entertainment in America, because outside of that intersection that you talked about, the two of them, what are some of the milestone moments that you see in between that you covered or witnessed yourself that kind of fed into, like leading to from the Run DMC piece into the Kanye piece?
Wow, man. I think after Run DMC, I think that's where mainstream was able to say, like, all right, they might not be a fad. This might not be a fad because disco never made that kind of influence on
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like ain't that kind. Rock did. Rock made it like that. So now it's like, oh, and then when we started to like, once again, I have to say, Run DMC and, you know, Aerosmith making that marriage. Like, I think one of the things Russell Simmons did was like he always looked at mainstream like we are them. Like that's us. We're not just the hood. We are them. And
so he had that vision.
Oh yeah. I think he had that vision. I think there was a lot of others that had it too, but I think he was just more active and willing to jump out there and see how it would work in the real world rather than just speculating. So I think a lot goes to Run DMC's success as artists as well as marketers. But then it's evolving so fast because of that success. It starts to change. Yeah, now you're getting Big Daddy Kane and Rakim and the lyricism, and it's like, whoa, what do we do with this? Then you get gangster rap, like, whoa, what do we do with this? And now you're starting to get into like the early 90s, and you're starting to see like, oh, there's other artists that are just as good or even better, and that can market to different regions now. Run DMC was so East Coast. Yeah, now you're starting to see, you know, different droplets of artists coming out of the South and all of that good stuff. And when you think about it like that, you start to see that hip hop can spread a lot faster with more of a spectrum than it can with a singular person. The spectrum is what really helped us. NWA coming out of the West, now the West feels as though they have someone that they can go to. You know, Scarface and all of them coming out of the South, and then next thing you know, you got Outkast. You're looking up to New York trying to fight to stay on, but oh, dip, here comes Chicago with all their people in common, and Detroit is like, don't forget about us, because here comes Slim Shady, and that, you know, like, it just all starts to morph like the Avengers. You know what I'm saying? And now, hip hop is the musical version of the Avengers, and we're taking it over. And I don't care what it is. Like, I think politics, corruptness in government, police, straight up and down, like poverty, the education system, all of those things. We can keep going on, like the way, you know, black on black crime, all these different things are Thanos. All of those things are Thanos, and all the hip hop artists are the Avengers, and they're helping young Black America in particular to be like, all right, here it is. This is your guide to life. And I think the reason why we get so upset with gangster rap or drill music and those kind of things is because we know how powerful hip hop is. So if it's only that sector that's being acknowledged, I think people start to look at it like, oh, it's going downhill. It's horrible. It's terrible. Chuck D told us a long time ago, man, hip hop is the CNN for us. And I think it's still that. In all these different spectrums, no matter internet, social media, all of that stuff, it's still that. And we get to take a temperature on how people are. And if the temperature right now seems disconnected, a devil may care type of thing, these kids don't really care about it, it's all about me, well, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. It very much is a me society right now. And in your breakdown, I love how you made the correlation to the Avengers and Thanos. That painted such an eloquent picture. I love it. But you also mentioned something about social media, and I think the role of journalism, I feel like it's changed radically since the onset of social media. How, if any, has the positioning of culture, though, changed given the presence of social media?
Wow. I think the presence of social media at first, it was to spread more of what was out there. You know, if I'm a Southern artist and I'm trying to get on, like, here I am, you know, check me out, this type of thing, and you would actually see the people you follow. I think now, since it's super big business, the algorithm has changed what we look at as culture. I think that's what's dictating what culture is now. If a certain kind of song from TikTok starts to blow up, they could plant that. They could plant it. They could plant, like, imagine me being and I know this is where it gets all crazy, but imagine me being a huge record exec, and I'm talking at the highest levels, and I just bought Bruce Springsteen's catalog, 500 million. I just bought them out. You know, they just sold this. I need to make that back. What's the best way? Let me go cut a deal with TikTok, and next thing you know, Born in the USA is now the song you need. It's trending. All I got to do is cut a check, and now that's the thing. And then that dictates culture now. You know? Now, is that any different from, you know, pay for play from back in the 60s and 50s? Is that any different? I don't know, but I do know that at least like in the 90s, and I hate to keep going back to that because I think it was just like a ground. It's like ground zero.
No, but that says a lot that you are going back to that. That says a lot without saying a lot. So go ahead.
Right. I think like then mixtapes and things like that were a little bit more of a curated sport for the people rather than an algorithm.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And all of these things are like a razor thin difference from each other. You know what I'm saying? So I think right now, social media, just on a business level, we got Elon Musk talking about you can't use links here, there, this, that, and the third. After we've had all of these things for so many years, now you're regressing, and that's going to impact business, which ultimately impacts culture. You're not going to be able to share it in different ways and stuff like that. So you're having one singular person saying no.
Right.
Like, that's crazy for something so massive. But once again, I always play devil's advocate with it as to, like, is a editor-in-chief that as well? Do I say no, they're not getting the cover?
Right.
No, they are getting the cover. You know what I'm saying? That could fall.
Fine line. And you said it. It's a very fine line. But as you were breaking it down, I was thinking to myself, there is a distinct difference that I do feel I can articulate immediately, where I think today's scenario, it's very much the programming.
Yep.
Right? When you were talking about how you pay for this, you go to the TikTok and you ensure that this song is now in front of everybody and everybody runs to that song. That feels like programming, as opposed to the era in which we came up. It felt like it was an engaging. When you talked about the mixtape piece, it's like everybody was competing to engage with people on a different way. It might have been some of the same songs, but the way in which they were flipping it, the way in which Clue was doing it, and Drum was it was an engagement. It wasn't a program.
Curation. Yep, that curation is different. It was different. It was like, yo, if I play this in the club, I'm seeing the reaction. This is shaking. If I play it on the radio, the calls come in. This is a reaction. You know what I mean? I think it's a little different when you start to gobble up all these different, catalogs, and then you disperse them to make your money back from that. I think it's the thing like, yo, let's create and let's have it. I'm not saying that those things shouldn't happen. I'm just saying that those things shouldn't be in an algorithm that's like programming us where we're not seeing the new, or we're just seeing things that are dope or quality as well. It's a weird world that we're stepping into, and I think our age group is like, we're the sweet spot of everything, man. We remember before
cell phones, computers, internet.
Like, we know that, and we know how to have fun in that time.
That's right.
Now, operate in it and start to learn it and absorb it and use it in our professional careers and personal lives. It's a weird place for us to be in.
Yep. So, as a Black journalist and content creator, I think there's a significant role that you play in not only the moving, but also the positioning of culture, whether that's backwards or forwards, right?
I got you.
So how do you handle this responsibility of ensuring that you deliver the purest form of content? Look, you already know where I'm going. Versus could be very detrimental, exploitive, maybe even diminishing in some cases to the culture we live in, bro.
Bro, that right there is one of the things that, if anything ever throughout my career has kept me up at night, is that. I mean, the work is the work. Like, negotiating covers and dealing with management and publicists and fickle artists and people being upset with your take on something. Those are things that come with the job. The one thing that really has stuck with me over the years, and I still deal with now, is how far is too far to cover certain things. And I could give you an example. I remember when the whole 6ix9ine, Tekashi 6ix9ine situation was happening a few years ago, and he was blowing up, and I was really contemplating giving him a cover, and I was really contemplating, like, all right, am I leaning into the negative by doing it, or am I marking the time in history about what's going on? And then I was getting heat from some staff members for even considering it. Then I would look out into like, the audience, that's what everybody was talking about.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, man, dude, what do you do? And then right when I feel like I was going to make a decision, either yay or nay, that's when everything happened to him, and it was really hard to get to him. And sometimes I think about, like, are you helping the situation by exposing and giving people the information about someone like that? Or are you hurting by glorifying at the same time? And it's wild, man. Like, I don't think another genre of journalists think about it like that.
Sure.
Those are the people that they're talking to. They're like, yo, what's the hottest story? You don't care.
Jump on it. Do it.
Exactly. And that's like the first thing of a journalist. Like, you're supposed to go after what's the story. That's the thing. But when you know that that kind of thing could be detrimental sometimes, I think that's the kind of heat that I would say, like, a Vlad gets right now. It's like, yo, Vlad, do you have to talk about that? Does that have to be like that? Does that have to be the angle? And you can't be mad at them because that's the thing everybody is talking about, or you make it the thing that they talk about. But you said Black journalists in particular. And when you do that, sometimes I think we have an extra burden on not just protecting what our people consume, but also knowing, like, this might be a little too far sometimes.
That's right.
And I think as I've gotten older, that's why they tend to really like to have younger, capable people in these positions, because they go to wow boys. We doing, we out here, we doing it. And that's how I was when I was younger. I didn't care. I was
That's right.
wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing king. Like, yo, it's like, is she ready yet? You ready to take this cover?
Right. I
got credits on you. And you're supposed to evolve, but not necessarily, you're not supposed to censor. And that's my thing. Like, now would I have a conversation with 6ix9ine? I probably would. I think then it was a little bit more fiery.
Yeah.
Because now he's going through stuff and he can have an actual different kind of take, and you could take it like, oh, okay, even after he's going through that, he's still crazy. Or you could do it like, oh, look, he's learned something.
He's learned something. Right. So it's more informative and a lesson than anything else of capturing a trend that's hot right now that you have to really teeter on. Is this really the right thing or not?
I think about those things all the time. And I just used him as an example because even right now, like NBA YoungBoy is somebody that I would love to make that happen with. With some people look at that as like, why would you put him? Like, yo, he's literally the hottest thing that nobody can really put their finger on. Why?
That's right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying? The dude's downloads are crazy. He has whole like a whole legion of fans that'll tell you in any comment section why, you know, what's his name? Young Boy is better.
Yeah.
Young Boy doing better.
No,
you know, so it's something I think about, and it doesn't even just always pertains to rappers. It's like, you know, serious situations that's out here. In my running of a vibe, I didn't lean towards the scandalous side, like some of the previous regimes. But some of the previous regimes didn't have to deal with the internet and social media like I do.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm navigating it through a different time. So, yeah, man, it's something that's always kept me up.
Sure. So, because I was going to, and you kind of answered this question talking about expectations for Black journalists and editors being different, and hearing just even the scenario that you walked through, I feel like there is, right? But and some of it comes from yourself, right? The standards, because now you're a father, you know the implications of some of these things, so you have a different expectation.
Automatic, man. I look at certain things a lot different now, or at least I contemplate them more. If I don't look at them different, I think about it a little bit more. Even if my seat says, stick to your guns, this is how you grew up, these are the things that you're supposed to keep around mentally, I'll still think on it though. Is that thinking good for these times?
That's right. That's right.
These times, like growing up, you know how it was about the LGBTQ community. If you were a young Black straight male coming out of the hood, they weren't looked at and revered in the way that they are and understood now. If I wanted to, I could stand on old ways of thinking in that and not be sympathetic to their times and some of the things that they have to go through. And growing up over the years, you start to be like, yo, yeah. And I was never so-called homophobic or anything like that, but it was always like, you know, if you're listening to hip hop all day, it's like, yo, that might not be the way that you can be, and you're not a strong Black man if you're not. I know some LGBTQ community people that are some of the strongest Black men and women that you would ever meet.
How about that?
So that's why I'm saying, like, even if I was to feel a certain way, you have to start thinking like, wait, is that way the way anymore? Is that the way that you have to think? And why do you have to stay that way?
Right.
You know, I saw something recently, of course, on social media. These memes, they'll get you no matter what.
Oh, every time.
They'll get you. And they were saying something about unlearning. Unlearning is a lot of learning too, because we've been taught to embrace certain kind of traumas just as Black people. Like certain things you're just supposed to embrace and take, and we carry it. You know, I think one of the main ones is that whole, you know, strong Black woman thing. Like Give it to them. They'll
Mhm.
handle it. Just give it to them. And it's like, yo, they need. I think what they call it now, soft time. I think they call it soft. Like that's like a term that's cool now. They need that, you know. Yes, it's cool to be known as that. And this is the thing where it steps outside of what we do as culture and all that, Aster, because a lot of times when we step off the playing field of being in the office or being out at events or being at meetings and stuff like that, you go into real life. You go into real life. And if your real life isn't kind of cushioned in that way, you're always fighting the industry and your real life.
Yep.
The industry and your real life. Like, what's the industry like? Oh, he's this kind of person. This is what he does. This is how he responds to these things. This is how he reacts to this. And then your real life is like, you got your kids jumping on you, something going crazy in the house, the car just messed up. It's like, how are you the same person? And I think that's one of the things that's like, that's something that it took me a while to balance. It wasn't like I was being different people. It just took me a while to balance both. And especially now that my kids are a little older, it's a lot easier, man. It's a lot easier.
But that meme, that social media meme that you mentioned is very reflective of something that James Baldwin said, years ago about people entrapped in history, and history is trapped in them.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very similar, but look at how the interpretation of it is so different from that of a James Baldwin to now some youth, whoever, because the internet is never loses. Internet is undefeated. And how they brought that to life once again, right? We're still going through that of it's work to unprogram and peel off some of these things. I want to ask you about, do you feel a way when this culture is like featured or highlighted on platforms or spaces that aren't really contributors to or of the culture? Or is it something where you're happy to see the culture kind of featured in other spaces outside of our own, for lack of a better term?
I hate to say that I'm 50-50 on it.
Okay.
And some days I'm 70-30.
Yeah.
The only time I really get upset about it when I see like, our hip hop space, especially hip hop turning 50, when I see our space or things that are adjacent to it, like a Black Panther, when those kind of huge events that are rooted in Black culture, African culture, Entertainment Weekly or even a Rolling Stone, or they get it first. Yeah, like those spots will get it before Essence, Ebony, Vibe, whoever. And I'm not saying just come to Vibe first.
Right. No, you mentioned that last in the
Like, yo, that I want some brand, some Black brand to get it, and for it to be as the same quality. Don't service us photos of the stuff y'all took from Disney.
That's right.
And EW and the rest of them could go ahead and get
treated with the same energy.
Give us the same energy. Even if you go to them first, we want that same energy that you gave them. Oh, what? Because the Black population might not be as big, but that's rooted in African culture. Are you crazy? And I had to deal with that firsthand in 2018, with the first Black Panther, and I'm mad now. That's why I'm glad you asked the question. I'm mad as hell now that so many Black publications were there, and we had to take like the second fiddle until I stood up and was like, nah, I ain't doing that. And I set up our photo shoot in the hallway. I set up a photo shoot, profile shoot in the hallway of the London Hotel where they had to walk by me. So if you walk by me and see that this is set up for your Black self and there's a Black staff here, then that's an agenda. That means you want this to be out there too. And I have to tell you, it was certain cast members that made sure we got our shot.
That's awesome. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah, man. Like I had to. They wanted to like keep us in the corner and y'all go in this room over here. I was like, room? And they got like a whole set over there?
How about that?
They got a whole set? Are you crazy? No. I'm not doing that. And yeah, man. And that's the thing about we take ownership of our genre. Like we hold it tight because we know, like, especially me, I know before I got in the game, this hip hop thing was all I had to walk with in the street if I was by myself. I'm walking with Redman. I'm walking with Tupac. I'm walking with Big. I'm walking with Tribe Called Quest. They're keeping me level-headed. They letting me know, like, what's going on. Regardless, you know, I'm a hood kid, and of course I got uncles, pops, everybody, and all that. But just the fact that there was a music or there were some people out there that was putting something to music that understood my travels. There were certain kind of movies that spoke to me. You know what I mean? Friday and all of that stuff, like, that spoke to me. So if I get into this game and that gets to go to somebody else that would never experience that, and it goes to that audience and we don't get it, I'm upset about that. So when it goes into those other areas and we don't get the same treatment, I have to say something. And I was told to, nah, don't say nothing, da 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 da. Nah, man, like,
You couldn't do it.
And couldn't do it. And here's another example. There was a time when Fast and Furious, which started in Vibe. It started in Vibe. And it was a story that got optioned in Vibe. It was called Racer X, May 98. It's Master P and all of them on the cover. If anybody wants to go check it out. It was a Racer X story that turned into Fast and Furious. One time, in one of the many, because it's like 20 of them joints now, but in one of the franchise releases, they took 100 journalists, 100, to like Brazil. No black media. I don't understand how internationally you take 100 journalists internationally and there's no black media or no black facing media.
Wow.
And I brought that up. I brought it up. It was after the fact, after I found out, and I was like, what? And I said something about it. And next thing you know, and I gotta give a shout out to Tyrese. He was like, yo, you're right. And he made sure that when the new one came out, we were able to have like a screening for it. We did covers for it and all that stuff. But it was just unfortunate that they don't think about our genre, but that's where you got it from. You got that joint from Vibe. What is wrong? Like, it's crazy to me. So, because it's car culture that happens, why didn't any of y'all do that story and it get optioned from there? We don't get included when it's those kind of things to help blow it up. I'm like who's driving the boats here? Which, you know what? So that question is a trigger for me.
Yeah, and I love it. I love every bit of the passion you gave, and rightfully so. And it's evident. It's evident that preserving and growing our culture is critical for you. Critical, as it should. Automatic. Because this culture, as we know it, has often been borrowed. It's been appropriated. It's or used to inspire other cultures and industries. And so, getting your thoughts of the importance of, I call it Black ownership or recognition of this, and what we bring to the world. How important is that, of us getting this recognition and this ownership of it?
I think that's the one thing that throughout the history of hip hop, that's always going to be, at least in these first 50 years, that's always going to be a point of contention, because there's so much that we lost in the business aspect. We were so behind in business, just as Black individuals, Black creators, Black executives. We were so far behind in ownership that you're starting to hear all these stories, these horror stories about people getting, swindled out of their fair share. So now, the last 4 or 5 years, and I know I keep bringing him up, and he's like all crazy and stuff, but I think all this Kanye stuff was triggered by him feeling like he's been unfairly dealt with, and and some of the contract stuff. Everything else he's talking about is like really weird and bugged out and wrong. But when he's talking about some of the business things, he's like, yo, like this is crazy. This is unfair. I think in other instances where you start to hear that with a smaller drum than he has over many years, if you look at any stories that we've written in Vibe, if you read any source stories, if you look at any documentaries, even from back in the 70s and Barry Gordy's day and all that, it was all about these contracts. And I think as Black entrepreneurs and Black executives and people that really make and move culture, that's one thing that we haven't had the mentorship in. You jump in this because you're creative and you have talent, and you have all these things, but no one's really telling you which lawyer to go to that can really get you your best deal.
That's right.
Are you checking the deal? Are you even educating yourself on what you're supposed to get and what is supposed to get?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What is that term? Like, do those goalposts need to move and or be knocked down? Like, forget the goalposts now. Like, what kind of playing field are we on? Do we have to restructure it? So it's the most, going into Hip Hop 50, it's the most important thing right now is ownership. Mm-hmm. And we get to see that when someone like LeBron is talking about, I want to own a team in Vegas, and people are laughing. Mm-hmm. He has $1 billion, right? He's worth $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
If someone else other than a LeBron that looks like a NBA owner can go with $1 billion and go get it, why can't he?
That's right.
You know, so it's the packaging a lot of times of who wants it and who has the money and who has the wherewithal to be able to make it successful. And I think that's the most important thing right now, is for us to have ownership in the things that we put together.
Agree. So as a journalist, you know, you're constantly shaping how things should kind of be viewed and or remembered. But how would you like to be remembered?
When I was at Baruch, they asked us to write our own obituary.
Oh, wow.
I was like,
really?
Yeah, they asked us to do that. I remember our English teacher asked us to write our own obituary. And I just redone my basement, and I had found it, and I don't know where it is, man. I saw it. I was like, oh, I got to read that again. But it was a little bit too morbid for the time when I was moving everything. But I do. It was a little too morbid for the moment. But I do remember skimming it, and in it, I talk about like how I wanted to make an impact in the entertainment industry, and I wanted to be remembered. And I wasn't even I was like 19 when I wrote this. I was like, he was a father, loving husband, and I was just like,
look at me.
Yo, this is crazy. Like that manifestation stuff. But
that's right.
I think I just want people to remember me as someone that was, that cared for people. And then particularly our people. Like I just love making sure that everybody is straight. I don't know if that comes from like my grandmothers, which I think it does, because I used to just see them take care of the neighborhood and all their friends and all the extended family and feeding everybody and just loving. If you're one of our friends, now you one of their grandsons or nephews in the family. So I have this like connection to people's spirit that, I want to be able to help. And sometimes that's to my own detriment, but I always know that it's always to my blessings and my family's blessings, because my intentions are pure. So I just would like people to remember that more so than anything that I ever produced or anything like that, that I was a lover of people and that I cared about them.
So you inspired by anybody outside of your industry?
Oh yeah, man. Wow, that's crazy. Dag, man. There's so many people that's running through my mind right now. This such a great question, Astor, man. I'd never get this stuff.
I love it.
when I look at Dag, but he's in our industry.
Well, share it.
Henry Louis Gates Jr. I'm so inspired by his pursuit of documenting our people's history in a visual form, not just in books. Finding people's roots, going back to like where they come from. I think that's something that our people, we are sorely deficient of. You might know who your grandmother is, you might know who your great grandmother is, but if you go a little bit past that, you don't necessarily know.
Right.
Just because of how we were brought to America, and the fact that he's trying to find those connections and those pathways and what it does to people and how it opens their eyes. And I love the fact that when he does that, the biggest of the celebrity becomes one of us. And they always say in journalism, it's about taking the extraordinary, making them ordinary, and taking the ordinary, making them extraordinary. So if you see any stories on like Nas just said something on King's Disease 3 where he was like, the crossing lady guard that helps the kids go to school crossing the street, she's going to be blessed just like you. And if you don't believe in that, then slat, go where you go, be where you at. That is that. Like, basically, if you have these like ambitions of grandeur of being a superstar and all that, that crosswalk lady deserves the same kind of blessings that you're getting in this kind of world. And I think like Henry Louis Gates, what he does is he brings everyone to that ground level when you find out the humble beginnings of your ancestry. So he's someone that I really look at in that space as an older Black man. And then I think like on a community level, just being able to help people, it's so cliche, man. Damn, man, I don't even believe I'm saying it. So freaking cliche. But I think what Obama was able to do at the time that he did it. I often think about like, and it's not just him when I say that. I think it was just the formation of having a Black family in the forefront. Forget all the politics aspect. I'm just talking about.
No, I get it. I get it.
The look that he was able to maintain and it may be a look. Let's just say it. Because Michelle's coming out like, yo, it was 10 years. Well, I don't know if I liked him. Or it was just real hard.
Right. But it's real life.
But it's real life. That's the thing. And we were able to see, she wore that real life on her face in her little moods and stuff. If you were Black, you could pick up on it. But I say that to say, I don't even know where we would be as a country if that look wasn't there. Imagine taking him out and just having like one of the regular bushes or...
Couldn't even imagine. Don't even do it. Let's not even do that exercise. Couldn't.
You know what I'm saying? If you see that lineage, especially where we are right now.
Yeah.
Especially where we are right now as a country and with all these race relations and, all these different things that are going on. With, I think as a people... right now, we're not getting a lot of that. We're not getting that kind of love that kind of recenters you when you get off your path a little bit. We're resulting to the memes and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Those are the things that kind of like keep us rolling. But I feel like if she was still around to be able to sit on that Oprah couch every couple of months,
ground us.
She was like the Black people whisperer.
I love that.
And then and you got to think about it. Who was her biggest mentee? Oprah. Where are powerful people getting their power from? And they're not perfect. And that's the other thing.
Nobody is.
Like these people are perfect. It's like, oh, look what Oprah did when she did this, and look what Obama did when he did this, and look what Skip did. They're not perfect.
Not perfect.
But they do have valuable missions that's out here, and I believe that's for all of us.
You put it into perspective on the why you're so influenced by them, and many of us are in those same ways, which I love. So now we have the opening scene to your life documentary, bro. It's about to begin. What song is playing and why?
Yo, that's good, man. You're pretty good, bro. You're pretty good. Oh my goodness gracious! What's the opening song? Gosh, man. I mean, I'm a big Big Daddy Kane lover. I'm a big Tribe Called Quest. It's probably something by Tribe.
Okay.
And it might be, it's not even like a big song of theirs, but the first thing that comes to mind is Push It Along. And Push It Along for me was such a instrumental song because it's on their first album. It's like a deep cut, and they talk about taking life's problems and pushing them along, like working through it. I just didn't understand it when it came out. I was like 14, and I was like, why do I like this song so much? You know, because it was so many other songs on there that were way more popular, and even I liked more. But there's something about Pushing Along, the jazzy notes of it, Tip kind of laying into it and explaining like life is just going to be what it is. But if you don't push it along, you're going to always be stuck.
That's right.
So I think opening my life, you know, doc or and Pushing Along comes on, it just sets the scene. Cause I would love for something to be a little bit more aggressive. You know what I'm saying? I really want some like scratching crazy, like Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos by Public Enemy. I would love that, but that wouldn't necessarily come in until like teenage years.
That's hilarious. I love it. So the last thing I always ask is, you know, a lot of what we're talking about within culture is about cultivators. And with cultivators, it's all about planting of seeds, right? Everything is a planting of seeds. We alluded to it a little bit earlier. And a seed is then watered. You have to water it accordingly, and then it blossoms into something hopefully beautiful, but it could be something very dark, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Two opposites.
Could be poisonous.
Could be poisonous. There you go. Facts. So what are the 3 seeds that you would want to leave with the stewards of culture moving forward? If you had 3 seeds that you felt were important, what would those be?
Originality. Perseverance. And understanding. I think with those 3, originality will have the tentacles of innovation and creativity. That's why I didn't say those. So originality, it draws from those. They kind of all draw from each other. Perseverance. If you stop, you stop. Nothing evolves. I said originality, perseverance, and dedication, determination. I think I did, but we could go back and see what it is.
Listen, man, I can't thank you enough, not only for the time, but your consistency. What I mean by consistency, your character for all the years I've known you has always been one of integrity, and you've evolved, you've grown, you have been sitting in seats and been in rooms and represented us super, super well. And I'm so thankful. I thank God that you're in that space and that you are a vessel of purpose and doing everything that you're doing. And a sincere thank you to you, bro.
Thank you so much, bro. Like, you don't even know, when I saw you at that event the other day, I was like, yeah, this is why I came. Because I wasn't even going to go. It was like the wrong thing. And I was so excited because we hadn't seen each other in a while, even though we DM here and there.
Exactly.
We show love to the fam. I just know what it is to be who you are, bro. Not in your everyday, like how you work and everything, but just who we are as Black men within this. I know what that is, man. And for you to see me enough to be like, hey, I would love your thoughts on this. And for me to be honored by this, man, like see you out here loving and striving, and you and your beautiful family, man, it's a inspiration to me as well, bro. So thank you for all you do as well, fam.
I appreciate you.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Love.
We truly appreciate your support because it helps us fulfill our mission of promoting cultural awareness and personal development. Please click the subscribe button below to help ensure and solidify our mission.